This is Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty. Even when it's shitty, this nitty gritty is getting on my titties. What in the shitty bitty? Ooh! What is an Uppity African? What is an Uppity African? Because the only way that is a valid statement, and I don't even know who said it. I just saw it on my Facebook right now, people saying that about Tyla, and I have had it up to here, especially since last September, for the last year, with people having bad faith arguments with and about South Africans, constantly demonizing us since September. Anyway, so excuse me for being triggered, but the only way the phrase Uppity African can be a valid phrase is in the mind of someone who thinks that the correct way of being for an African is having your head hung down and your shoulders hung.
Good morning, Your Highness.
Uppity. I saw Tyla's speech at the VMAs. She did nothing but thank and acknowledge other people.
Shout out all the Afrobeats artists in this category with me. Shout out Thames, Ira Star, shout out Loj, shout out Rema, Whiskey, Burna Boy, all of us. And yeah, love you guys. Africa to the world.
That was humble. But you would be able to see that if you didn't grow up with notions of Zamunda, where a woman comes up from the water and says, the royal penis is clean, where you think the rightful way for an African woman to behave is to be lying around just desperately wanting to help you with your personal hygiene by performing fellatio. Africa is not Zamunda. South Africa is not Zamunda. We are a real country. And I have had it up to here with people, especially Brits and Americans, but also, to be perfectly clear, people from our own continent wanting us to fit into their idea of what South Africa is. We are grown up, guys. We are grown up. Okay? Tyla is a proud Joburg girl who carries herself with dignity. She was not raised to see herself as somebody's inferior. There are people, her first democratically elected president before she was born, okay, went to jail for 27 years to ensure that she wouldn't feel small. There are children who have been shot in our lifetimes to ensure that she does not feel small. There are people, black, white, colored, and Indian, who have been in solitary confinement, who have had their testicles electrocuted, who have had people playing Russian roulette on their dicks, who have watched their children being killed, and who then chose to work together to forgive so we could build a nation, because our love for South Africa is greater than our hatred for each other was. So that children like Tyla do not have to hang her head.
And mountains, deserts and plains of this country, people of diversity stand united as we come together to face a foe. And as we do battle on the field, remember that we fight for more than victory. We fight for each other and for this great country. Boga, we stand behind you.
We do not owe it to you to hang our heads. I don't recall anybody doing this to Charlize Theron, a South African from the same Joburg that Tyla comes from. I do not recall anybody doing this to Charlize Theron. who geographically grew up exactly the same distance from where I am right now as Tyla grew up, just in the different direction. El Dorado Park, Benoni. I don't remember you guys doing that to Charlize Theron. I don't remember you guys doing this kind of thing, giving unfair criticism. Fair criticism, fine, but no unfair criticism to Elon Musk, who's also from South Africa. I don't remember you guys doing this to Mahatma Ghandi, who was a naturalized South African citizen. But the minute it's a colored girl, the minute it's a female who both crosses the intersection of black and mixed race, then somehow it's perfectly okay to do that. I've had enough. I've had enough. Unless you work for the Department of Home Affairs in South Africa, or unless you work for the Constitutional Court in South Africa, you have no right to decide who and what South Africans should be. Okay? At the same time, just weeks ago, people were calling our fighter, Dricus, you guys were calling him a pink pig. And he beat your ass.
Afrika! Hulle weet nie wat ons weet nie.
Then, when South Africans were deeply concerned and deeply enraged of 30 years of syndicates of people stealing our identities, which has resulted in our kids not being able to finish school because you can't do a thing without a South African ID document. You cannot get married. You cannot get a driver's license. You are nothing in this country without. You cannot even get a passport. You don't exist without an ID. And there are syndicates in this country of which our government and their syndicates are responsible, our previous government, the ANC government, as well as syndicates from certain countries. Okay? Largely Zimbabwe and Nigeria.
Born on the 25th of January 2015. Nhlapo is registered as the mother, while the captured details of the father are of one Emmanuel Musa from Nigeria. They also showed her this birth certificate belonging to Matipa Theo Chiviru, born on the 4th of February 2017. With this child too, Nhlapo is registered as the mother and Theophilus Chiviru from Zimbabwe, the father. Both these birth certificates are legitimate Home Affairs documents, making the children South African. Bewildered, she asked the Home Affairs officials how something like this could happen. Since nabbed for the crime, are former Randfontein Home Affairs officials Charlotte Benz and Kio Rapeti Nimbini. Benz was initially arrested for allegedly registering Zimbabwean-born fake doctor Kingsley Chele as a 14-year-old South African child in 2020, using the details of a South African woman unconnected to Chele. Using his fake South African citizenship, Chele is alleged to have swindled at least 14 unsuspecting women of 1.3 million rand.
This is not an indictment on the whole of Zimbabwe and the whole of Nigeria, but there are certain key individuals, our shady people and their shady people, made friends. They made it very difficult for the good people who come to our country from those nations to make it through. And when they do come through, our syndicate guys, and I'm acknowledging that our syndicate guys are wrong too, they completely overcharge well-meaning people from the rest of Africa for a license where maybe I'll pay 300 rand, that guy has to pay in the thousands, okay? And the reason why so many shady people come from those countries to ours is because the good people aren't willing to pay a bribe. So yes, you are going to give me credit. I shouldn't have to say it, but because I'm from South Africa and all these bad faith thingies are going on, every time we say something, you guys look, what is the worst interpretation I could have that makes her look like a demon? Because my small little mind cannot fathom that an African can actually have a point. So yes, you're going to give me credit for acknowledging wrong on our side, and you're going to give me the credit I deserve for acknowledging right on the other side. It's a nuanced conversation. But the first people who want to wax eloquent about Afrophobia is people from my husband's country, the United States. And once again, please acknowledge me for saying this. There are 400 million of you. You are not a monolith. I acknowledge you're not the same. But you guys know who you are. You guys know who you are. Not the ones who are well-meaning. Principled Americans, kind Americans are usually not the loudest. Okay, they do outnumber the rest of you. I've acknowledged it. Okay, but here's the thing. That little arrogant percentage, which is bigger than most small countries, okay, even though it's a drop in the ocean in America, you piss the world off. You piss the world off. Why were you crying about us having Dricus on the basis of his being white? Why?
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies.
You're crying about a deaf woman being Miss South Africa. Ooh, but she's what? She is a South African citizen. She fits white beauty standards, and now South Africans are supporting the Nigerian woman who doesn't fit white beauty standards. Let the record show no South African said that that was your problem. We love black women. We have women of all shapes, sizes, and colors, and we love a variety of beauty. My country is proud of her diversity. She has fought long and hard to have it. When a Western nation does diversity, you guys praise them. But somehow, when an African nation does it wonderfully, you magically, with mental gymnastics, find a way to demonize us. With false senses, with a false sense of moral superiority. We are living Nelson Mandela's dream. It isn't your place to speak back to us about what we want. Which is why right now is the month of September. And you know what we celebrate? Diversity. It's our heritage month in which all kinds of people dress in cultural outfits, and not just their own culture, you can dress in a culture that you admire. Okay? Our core thing in our country is called unity and diversity. We don't see the world the way you do. When you guys were trying to pretend that the colored thing with Tyla was about colorism, you couldn't even tell the difference between our black people and our colored people. We have pale black people. We have dark colored people because colored people have a massive genetic thing. You guys made that about colorism. We're not responsible for that. And then you guys want to slap the word racism on us? Newsflash. We don't shy away from our racial past. We faced it and we faced ourselves. So you're never going to hurt us with that unfair label. A racist in South Africa doesn't pretend to be something else. And when a South African tells you we're not racist, you can trust that. You never have to wonder about this country because one thing we aren't is fake. The majority of people are trying to live up to what Nelson Mandela said he wanted before he spent 27 years in prison. Which you should be Googling instead of telling us how to be and to fit into your little Zamunda fallacy.
I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an idea for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But my Lord, if it needs be, it is an idea for which I am prepared to die.
Because of the myth of the civilizing effect of the West upon Africa. When you guys want to sit there and talk about Afrophobia. Americans, sometimes the most well-meaning and kindest of you, don't even realize how much Afrophobia rolls off your tongues when you ask stupid questions. Why is your English so good? Why are you African if you're not black? How can Afrikaans be a non? Stupid questions. You'll even make documentaries about how you came to save African animals from Africans who have been living in harmony with them for 30,000 years and up until since the Ice Age. But magically, when Western civilization came out and they finally had guns, magically, millennia of Africans who had had animals in the countless hundreds and thousands just magically forgot. They just forgot how to take care of animals. And so it's their fault, magically, that when guns came to this nation, the Holocaust of the animals happened in the 1800s. What's a kak is dit? Now, I've told you off about Dricus, I've told you off about Tyla, I've told you off about Miss South Africa. What else do we have to talk about? Omicron, Delta. You couldn't get it in your minds, Afrophobes. You couldn't even handle the idea when Botswanan scientists outperformed every scientist in the West, the whole West, and they were the first to discover those variants, and they phoned South Africa, and South Africa checked with them, and South Africa phoned the world. And you know what reward they got for being the first scientists to find it? Or if they weren't, they were the only scientists with enough integrity. So no matter what you want to say, you can't acknowledge that this country I'm sitting on right here has the most advanced epidemiological infrastructure in the world. If you cannot fathom that in your badly educated mind, then fine. Watch our integrity, because they were the first to speak up about it. So either your scientists are not as good as South African scientists, or they don't have their integrity, wherever you are in the world. And your governments around the world, like a domino effect, shut down our borders, even though those variants had come from places like the Netherlands. No, Netherlands was shut down. Oh, but South Africa, Botswana, Namibia. We are not your whipping boy. You are not going to step on our dignity. Tyla walked there tall and proud. She walked there tall and proud, and we are proud of her. She is one of the first free-born people in our nation. And you want to cry about that? You think that you have the right to cry about that? What is an uppity African? You spelled woman of dignity wrong. Now, if you can't handle self-confidence in someone, get some therapy. But leave our girl the heck alone. I've had enough.
I have fought against white domination. And I have fought against black domination. I have carried an ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But my Lord, if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
I can hear the echoes of his voice and that cold, cold room when he said, freedom is an ideal I want to live for. But if needs be, freedom is an ideal I'm prepared to die for. There was silence in court. He was sentenced to isolation in a small cell. Hard labor was isonka sakhe semihla ngemihla. They made him break rocks, thinking they were breaking his spirit. Little did they know they were preparing him to break barriers of inequality, oppression, and discrimination. And when he opened the prison doors, he opened his heart and forgave them. Now that's my first black president. For the greatest sacrifice of all is to sacrifice yourself. And you did it. Just like a true boxer, you fought your way out of the ropes to the center stage of the world. But I wonder, had it not been for your sacrifices, where would I be? Thank you, Tata. You are my hero, my inspiration, and you made me proudly South African.
And if you have a problem with South Africans being of different races, you need to ask yourself this question. Why is diversity sanctified and praised when a Western nation does it? But when an African nation excels at it, you guys have a problem. Now, if you have a problem with what I said, you're welcome to show me your credentials, as I said earlier, where you work for the Constitutional Court of South Africa, where you work for the Department of Home Affairs, your ID document as Nelson Mandela, who said, I have fought against white domination, I have fought against black domination, I have cherished the ideals of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunity. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but my lords, if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. You don't get the right to speak over him. As for Desmond Tutu, he called this the Rainbow Nation. We are proud of that diversity. And if you don't like that we love each other, that we band together, and the majority of us will always be there for each other, be mad about it. Another little inconvenient reminder. Which nation was it that called a spade and a genocide this time last year, while nations around the world cowered? Who gave the world the courage to rise up?
Thank you, South African. Thank you, South Africa. South Africa.
Because this nation was unafraid of being called anti-Semitic and made it clear that their fight was not with the Jewish people.
And our case also is not against the Jews as a people. Our case is against the actions of the state of Israel.
At the same time, they were being called anti-white by Britain because one of our black guys was given an unfair accusation of racism, and South Africa stood firm behind him. At the same time, we're being called anti-black because black people rose up and stood for Tyla, while people rose up and stood for Bongi this time last year. And South Africa rose up and stood for Palestine this time last year. You're trying to intimidate the wrong people, guys. South Africa will never live down this label. We've been the whipping boy for a century. A century. You're welcome to your opinions if you open a book first, bruh. But until then, until you know what the heck you're talking about, and don't tell me we don't like criticisms of our country. Don't tell me that, because we are the first to criticize it. And we don't mind people who know what they're talking about. Okay? But until you know what you're talking about, your opinions are fought on the internet. And for you bad faith argument people talking about who was the girl that Chidima stole the identity from, her name was Tyla. Tyla Msunuwako.
I've got full details of Tula's history here. She was supposed to graduate from Hojobeck High School in Fontaine, but she was unable to do so. She intended to study at the University of Fokovsburg. She grew up in Yelgatse province, ne? And in the city that she grew up was called Kakbradstad. Now have a lekker day, ne?